Today I'm pitting this famous chef up against his former protege with a lobster ravioli cage match. It's a cage match. It's a cage match! So hello everyone, welcome back to, well, welcome to the fight. And we're gonna get straight to business here, so let's choose our fighters. Marco Pierre White. I've been having the time of my life this year making this guy's recipes, from salmon to steak to lemon tarts and pig's feet to a recipe I'd rather not get into, quite frankly. I've gone through all the emotions with him, as I'm sure has this guy. Gordon Ramsay. Haven't heard of him. So Gordon used to work under Marco Pierre White. He was like his apprentice at his Michelin star restaurant. And then they went their separate ways, and then he earned his own Michelin stars at his restaurant, and then now he's the guy you see every time you go on the internet. Or turn on the TV, it's just, his face is everywhere. I swear to God. I believe they have a complicated relationship, from what I read at least. I read some stuff. I don't want to speculate, but I don't think it's entirely cordial between the two.
No, I didn't make Gordon Ramsay cry. He made himself cry. That was his choice to cry.
Anyway, there's this fascinating clip of the both of them making Marco's lobster ravioli together. Happier times, I suppose. And then Gordon has his own lobster ravioli recipe, so I thought I'd make them both and then see what's what. Yeah. First things first, my lobsters. Hello. Here we are, lobster one. My two lobsters. So one for each recipe, of course. They are the biggest lobsters that I've ever worked with. This one is between 2.5 to 3 pounds. It is a personal best for me. This one was like 2 pounds. Anyway, that is a lively lobster. So as you can see, they're very much alive, and as humanely as possible. And now they are not. I've separated the 2 lobster tails and the 4 claws. Okay, so Marco's is actually the only recipe that says to start off with a live lobster. So he's given me step by step of what to do for to extract the meat. And then after that, we will, but let's just follow along to Marco's. Got a lobster shell in my mouth. Starting off with the 2 lobster tails, I'm gonna blanch them in boiling salted water for 10 seconds. I think it's safe to remove the elastics. Blanch the lobster claws for 15 seconds. So I gotta remove the meat, so with the tails, I'm just gonna cut under the soft underbelly. Of course, I hope everyone's okay. We all do. And blanching is gonna help remove the membranes from the shell. Yeah, it totally does. Okay, so the tail meat comes out very easily. With the claws here, he doesn't say. So I'm just gonna bend the small pincer here backwards. I've done this before, that's why. That should help open it up. Some meat should come out when I do that, right? Yeah, heel of the knife. These scissors are very helpful. And just try to extract as much meat as possible. You don't want to leave any behind. Lobster meat has been extracted, fantastic. So just gonna cover it up in plastic wrap. Keep that in the fridge until I'm ready for it. And the lobster shells and carcass and all that jazz, I'm just gonna keep this readily available because I'm gonna need this for Gordon's recipe. Okay, so got the hard part out of the way. Now I gotta figure out what recipe am I gonna start with. And I leave that to a coin toss. Yeah, I planned it in advance. So heads for Marco, tails for Gordon. It's heads. Round 1, Marco Pierre White's White Heat Cookbook. So a ravioli of lobster with a burr soy sauce. Burr for butter. And I'm gonna be making all of that. So he's got something, I should read it. I'm gonna read it. I find the lobster a beautiful creature. A lobster is more beautiful to me than most women are. Weird. So from all the lessons that I've learned this year following along to this cookbook, I know that there's gonna be some directions missing, some assumptions made. I'm prepared for it. I've read this over. I got this photo here to help guide my way. Besides that and Marco's crush on lobsters here, I think we are ready to get going. What I'm gonna do here is start off with the pasta dough. I just wanna get this made and then we'll move on to other things. So I made it before for the recipe that shall not be named. Things went well, moderately. So you know what, I'm gonna beam in the whiz kid. Let's beam it in. Thank you. This is 2 1/4 cup or 270-ish grams of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and around 1/4 teaspoon of olive oil. Blend that to start. Cool. Learning my lesson from a past experience here. Break the eggs into something first, and then in they go. That's 2 eggs. And 3 egg yolks. So I pulse this together until it turns into a loose ball. All right, and then just knead this until it's smooth. I'm gonna divide that into four separate little dough balls here. These recipes are not gonna be using all the pasta dough today, so you're gonna wrap them up. Some of them you'll use, some of them you won't, and you'll save for another pasta day. Into the fridge for 20 minutes. Oh, full house today. Now, because I am following both of these recipes as they are presented on the page, like I'm making everything. So they both require like these stocks to be made. This one is a vegetable stock. It's gonna go into the sauce. So it is a little bit of work for not a lot of, I need a pot. 2 tablespoons of butter, half a fennel bulb, 1 leek, 1 zucchini, and 2 onions, and 4 cloves of crushed garlic, all roughly chopped, except for the cloves of garlic, which were crushed. Sweat those out in the butter. Enough cold water just to cover. All right, then I bring that to a boil. After 15 minutes simmering away, I got my fresh herbs. So half a cup of each, chopped tarragon, chopped basil, and this could be a recurring thing throughout the day, but I need chervil. It's an herb that I could not find anywhere, so I just looked up substitutes. And apparently flat leaf parsley with a mixture of tarragon is a good substitute for that. So yeah, simmering with those herby herbs for 2 minutes. No more, no less. You're gonna need a bowl and a sieve. And we strain immediately. That's all strained. This looks great, and you're gonna laugh when you see how much I actually end up using for this recipe. I'm gonna let that cool. Mind if I take a seat? I'd love to thank this episode's sponsor, Babbel, one of the top language learning apps in the world. So I was traveling around Morocco last year on a road trip, and I really had to use the bathroom. So we pull over to this like restaurant type place, and it's just full of people. And when you enter, it's like a record needle scratch. Everyone's looking at me. And no one speaks English, but they do speak French. Luckily, I was practicing. Où est la toilette? They point that way. Crisis averted. So if you're traveling this summer and you want to dust up on a new language, Babbel is scientifically proven to help you start speaking that language in just 3 weeks. And they have 14 different languages to choose from. With me, I'm still working on my French over here. Elle ne répond pas. She's not answering. 10 minutes a day and you're gonna be chatting it up with the locals in no time. Or at the bare minimum, locating where the closest toilet is. Because Babbel teaches you vocabulary for real world conversations. And however it is that you learn, they have all sorts of lessons, including a podcast section so you can learn while you're on the go. So what language would you like to learn? Click the link in the description to get 60% off your subscription. Rhyming. Merci, Babbel. So I have a 1-inch piece of ginger that I have peeled, and I gotta do this thing called a ginger brunoise. All these fine dining restaurants like to do this brunoise business, which is like taking vegetables, or in this case, this ginger a vegetable, and slice it very thinly one way. Then stack each piece. Okay, and then annoyingly stack them all again. As small and as thin as I can make them there. Get that into a pan with enough cold water just to cover. Bring it to a boil and squeeze a lemon juice. Immediately drain it and add some more cold water. Do it again, times 3. That is done. Ginger brunoise. So why do I do that? Ginger has such a strong flavor that it could easily overpower any other ingredient. You don't want that, so it mellows it out. Anyway, just put that to the side and let's move on to the rest of this filling. We're making the filling, right? Am I making the filling or the sauce right now? Oh, I'm making the filling. Oh. So now that the salmon has been hanging tight in the fridge, salmon, it's lobster. Okay, I got enough for both recipes. Look how beautiful that tail is. This is one thing that Marco does not remind you to do. Before you go any further, remove the poop. Good thing I remembered that in the 11th hour. Don't want that in your ravioli. Chop the chilled lobster into 1/2-inch cubes. Now I get that into the bowl. Along with the ginger, a few sprigs of finely chopped cilantro, pinch of cayenne pepper, lemon juice to taste. Season a little bit, so I'm gonna add a little salt. A nice looking piece of salmon right here. This is gonna be enough for both recipes and for dinner in a couple days. What I need for today is 4 ounces. Okay, just gotta remove the skin really quick. The salmon doesn't need to be in good shape right now because I need to beam in the Whiz Kid. Thank you. In goes the salmon, 1 egg. Blend up until it's a puree. Salt, and then add in the seasoned lobster. Now she just says to mix it thoroughly.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to operating difficulties, there's been an interruption.
I was definitely not supposed to pulse the lobster meat and the salmon together. I was supposed to mix it, so I stopped in the nick of time before I lost my lobster chunks. They remain crisis avoided. Okay, now it's time to move on to the crispy fried leeks. He shoots, scores, easy shot. Take the leek white. I got julienne it. So slice it in half, stack it thin, very thin. So slicing lengthwise, cutting into the thinnest possible pieces I can muster here. In a pan, I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Heat that up, but not too hot, or the leeks will burn. And we add the leeks until they're crispy. And then we get that on the paper towel. It's hard to know when they're crispy. You couldn't tell in the pan, but kind of crispy. So, yeah, can I summon Chromio? Alfredo, welcome back. And no, I moved your spot over here. What's going on? Can you see that? It might be a little out of shot. How about that? So I need to take one of these dough balls here and just flour up my surface just a touch and flatten this. Roll this out as thin as newspaper. Just keep adjusting the notches. Go thinner and thinner. The goal for me is to try to get this as thin as possible. In that clip of Gordon and Marco making this together, that's what Marco says. Try to go as thin as possible. And he says he needs 2 people to do it because, well, I only have 1 person, so it doesn't matter. Okay, that is my thinnest setting. Searching for like a 4-inch pastry cutter of the circular variety. Exactly. 8 4-inch circles. Spoon a good helping of the filling into 4 of the circles. Remembering the clip of him making this, he uses quite a bit of filling. Yeah, it's like almost like that. Of course, leaving a good edge around the filling so there's enough to seal it in. Let's get this on top. Just firmly press it together. We'll try not to stretch the dough. So I didn't. I think that's what we're after here. Okay, mission accomplished. I don't want the filling to touch that clean edge or I'm not going to be able to stick it together. Get the first half sealed first and then you can lift it up. As long as your fingers are slightly floured, you can lift it up easily and seal off the second half, no problem. Just continue to press the edges to ensure the seal is sound. If you have a smaller in diameter cutter here, you could probably just, no, you're happy with it. Who cares? That's as good as you could ever make it. You've done well. So you got your leftover dough. You can make a lot of raviolis in the future, not today. You got the 4. Smooth sailing. Don't get cocky, kid. Okay, so I gotta finish the sauce. Remember the vegetable stock? I made all of this vegetable stock. I only need 4 tablespoons. It's okay. I'll save the vegetable stock for something else delicious off camera. Into a small saucepan. In another small saucepan, I got a couple of them. I have sherry vinegar. Tastes great, but I only need 2 teaspoons. You're also going to need 1 teaspoon of soy sauce. A ridiculously small amount of liquids into each saucepan. Once the stock's to a boil, I'm going to add in a small piece of butter. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but that's small. Keep boiling until it's reduced down to a syrup consistency. So now that the soy vinegar has reduced down by half, I'm going to add in a little at a time. It has a strong flavor though. Be careful, son. Just based on intuition here, I'm going to add a little more butter because I think I'm looking for something that's a bit thicker. Now I'm going to boil that down until it's that syrup consistency. Honestly, I think that's there. I'm going to turn off the heat. Just keep that warm. This reserved soy vinegar, I'm going to save this for later. 2 things remain. Firstly, I gotta salt up some water and bring it to a boil. I'm gonna add in around a tablespoon of olive oil. Second thing, scallops. Cut the scallop across into 2 discs, he says. 1 disc, 2 disc. A non-stick frying pan. Get that on a high heat. That's gonna be for the scallops, but we're gonna get to that in a moment. Firstly, I gotta poach my ravioli, and I only need 2. Well, I only need 1, but one's gonna be a backup. These are my nicest looking ones. When boys become men. 3.5 minutes, let's go. Scallops onto the dry frying pan, and we're just doing 20 seconds aside. Just add a couple drops of olive oil on each scallop, and if you have any of that remaining soy vinegar. Let's plate up. I'm gonna go with the black plate today. Ravioli directly in the center. So 5 discs of scallops. Crispy fried leek in between each scallop. Spoon a little of the sauce on top of the ravioli and the scallops. You can stop now. Order up! Wow. I'm not going to reveal anything just yet. I'm just going to gather my thoughts. Where's my All right, let's move on to Gordon Ramsay's. Round 2, Gordon Ramsay's 3-star chef cookbook. A bigger and heavier book than what came before it. I just picked this up for this very moment. Ravioli of lobster, langoustine, and salmon with a lemongrass chervil veloute. And I'm gonna add a little asterisk beside the chervil there because I couldn't find it. I don't know a whole lot about this restaurant scene, but is it a coincidence that Gordon also has a lobster ravioli recipe? Especially considering the history here. I don't know, I'm not gonna speculate. Anyway, I did bookmark the extreme close-up right here. That's what we're going for. This has become a classic, and I don't see how it can be improved in any way. It shows great technique and skill. This exquisite appetizer is a long-standing favorite, and I like to include some langoustine in the filling. But to simplify the recipe, you can use all lobster meat and a little salmon mousse to bind. Oh, I got some langoustine. There's langoustine in the house. Shall we? So we're gonna start off with making this pasta dough. It's a saffron pasta dough this time around. So I'm gonna grab a big pinch of saffron, boiling water on top, and I'm gonna let that soak for 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, I gotta strain it. Yeah, we just need those threads. I gotta beam in the WizKid. Thank you. This recipe and Marco's recipe are nearly identical, except for a couple things, like that saffron, and like this, which is 250 grams of 00 flour. 00 flour this time around. And then we got a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, sifting the flour into the WizKid. And you can make a mess because I know that you will, and it's unavoidable. Cool. Sift it into the bowl first. Into the WizKid. Again with the 2 eggs into the food processor. 3 egg yolks, and then 1 tablespoon olive oil. And then that saffron. I blitz this, but I gotta scrape down the sides of the bowl twice. There's once, blitz again. It says the mixture should form small lumps which will hold together as a smooth, firm paste when pressed. Yeah, so knead for a few minutes till smooth and slightly springy. Check out the saffron in there. Wrap this up. Just gotta let it rest for at least 30 minutes. Okay, so what has to happen here is kind of similar to the other recipe. Well, just the idea that we gotta make a stock, but we gotta make a fish stock, and then that's gonna lead into a shellfish stock. Oh, it's a heavy book. I caught it midair. Around these parts where I'm living, the easiest fish trimmings to find are either salmon or red snapper. So that's what this is. Gordon's asking for a white fish. Fair enough, a turbot or a sole or a haddock. I got the red snapper, and you know what, it's fine for my fish stock. Honestly, man, how much tighter could you have tied that? I need only 2 pounds worth, so that's 3 of these. Yeah, when I'm making these videos, this always comes up, so I just bought a whole bunch of these guys over here, and I'm gonna freeze them down the road. Fishy. And Gordon's got a weird request here. He's asking me to remove the gills, that's already been done, and the eyes, cut out the eyes. Pop those suckers out, eh? How do you do that? I don't know if I want to do this. Can I just keep the eyes? I just want to keep them. I can't just, I mean, I could, I can't. It's just like they're bouncing around in there, and I don't want to see like just an eyeball on my cutting board. It's 6 of them to do in total. So I'm just gonna leave the eyeballs in, because I've made fish stocks with eyeballs in them before, and it's cool. When they're cooking away, it's fine. When I'm popping them out, different story. I mean, at the end of the day, aren't we straining the stock anyway? So am I really gonna be able to tell? Probably not. So I'm gonna drizzle in around 2 tablespoons of olive oil, onion, leek, celery, and fennel, 1 of each, roughly chopped. Get that on a medium heat. Add some salt and pepper. Cook these for a few minutes until they start to soften. In go the fishes, eyeballs intact. Just not strong enough, not strong enough. 1/3 cup of dry white wine. Now let that wine reduce all the way. Then we're gonna cover with cold water. You need around 4 cups of stock in the end, so just make sure you have enough. You're gonna have to get under the water. Okay, bring it up to a boil, and then you're gonna let it simmer for 20 minutes. Skim it, bowl, sieve, cheesecloth. So he wants me to cool this stock for the next 20 minutes, but I gotta make a stock immediately after this using this stock. So I'm not gonna wait. Just like passing things from one place to another place. I don't know why. I made more than 4 cups worth of stock, but that's cool. So how does that taste? Okay, that's good. Okay, so this is what's gonna take place, all right? I gotta now make a shellfish stock using the fish stock, using the lobsters, remember? And then also using some more of those red snappers. So, or what's left of a red snapper, right? Am I right? Anyway, oh, among other things. So let's go back to the stove, please, and thank you. Okay, get the heat going. Start off with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, lobster 1, lobster 2, and the tails. That's a little more than what Gordon's asking for, but what the hell. So in my bag of tricks here, I'm gonna add in 1, and I'm gonna add a second one. Maybe on the smaller side, because I heard, yeah. He says to shake it until those lobster shells are bright red and the fish are, well, they're just having a good time. In another large pot, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I got a lot of vegetables here that I gotta add into this pot here. I just gotta put them all up on the screen so you can see what the hell's going on. In they go. And then I gotta cook these vegetables for like 8 to 10 minutes until they begin to soften. So 10 minutes have passed, and I also just did a pot shuffle there. Now in with the vegetables, I need 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. Cook that in for 2 minutes. A couple thyme sprigs and parsley stems. 3 coriander seeds, 3 white peppercorns, star anise. All right, 1 bay leaf. Better make it 2. Because I'm not driving. Half a cup of dry white wine. Both of these guys, both of them, prefer this type of vermouth, which is called Noile Prat. And then just forgive me really quickly, I'm gonna repeat a joke from another video. It sounds like a British insult that Marco would be calling Gordon, right? You Noile Prat. It was better the first time I said it. So we gotta reduce. Crazy thing is he never mentions the lobster shells or the fish bones ever again. Ever again. Like, am I supposed to combine them? I mean, I'm combining them. I don't care. Yay! Once all that wine has been reduced, I'm gonna add in the 4 cups of fish stock that I made. Adding more lobster shells than he was recommending, so I'm gonna add a little more fish stock. So with the fish stock, cover until you've covered all the way. Eyeballs of the fish heads exploded, so I'm just gonna shove those under the liquid. There, you don't have to see it. I'm gonna be checking the seasoning and skimming the surface when I can, but yeah, I'm gonna let this simmer for half an hour. That seafood stock has been hanging out for a little bit of time. It has cooled off. Can I have a bowl? Thank you, and you read my mind with the sieve. Okay. And then I got my trusty cheesecloth again. That's good. All right, so we're gonna move on to Gordon's ravioli filling. So this is what he says here. I like to include some langoustine into the filling. They're like a mixture between shrimp and a lobster. More shrimp. Sorry, what is going on with the... Wow. Look at that. Is that like langoustine caviar? Look at all those little babies. This one must have been Prego. And they come from the other side of the pond. They're not around where I'm living, so there's kind of a special order here. It's a pretty nifty hybrid. Off goes the head. Cut open the tail as if it's a lobster and extract the meat. Turns out I'm gonna need her as well. Okay, out goes that vein. So remove the poop, finally dice up the meat. Because of how much lobster meat I have remaining, I've decided to half the filling recipe. So instead of making 8 raviolis, I'm only gonna be making 4, which is cool. And that's a blessing in disguise because this is all the langoustine meat I had anyway. And I'm also gonna do the same with the lobster meat. Finely diced. 5 ounces of my salmon fillet here that I removed the skin. I need to dice up 2/3 of it. Same deal as the lobster. I bring over my old handfuls of different herbs here. I have cilantro, as Gordon calls it, coriander, basil, and because I don't have chervil, this herb chervil. I don't know about this chervil. I couldn't find it anywhere. So the substitute today will be a mixture of flat leaf parsley and some tarragon. Maybe not too much tarragon. That will replicate kind of a close resemblance to chervil. I don't know. I've never had chervil before. Chervil? Chervil. I don't know. He says a handful of all this stuff like combined. Since I'm halving it, I am just gonna, a small handful. But I'm not using the stems, just the leaves of the stuff. Chop it. Okay, so we're gonna beam in the Whiz Kid again. Thank you. The 1/3 of the salmon, and then some black pepper and some salt. Blend this until it's a firm puree. Okay, and now with the motor running on slow, I'm gonna stream in, this is 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. All right, thank you, Whiz Kid. I think you're done for the day. Wow. Diced lobster meat, the langoustine meat, and the salmon, all diced. Mixed together. Just halt operation for a second here. Let's cover it up with this doodad. And I need to chill this for 20 minutes, and you can go along with it. Okay, 20 minutes, done. Seemed quicker for you, I'm sure. This is the lesson I learned from Marco's recipe here. But to just fold the puree in with the diced meat. It's gonna bind it all together. Add a squeeze of lemon juice, a handful of the mixed herbs, but I am only gonna do half of my handful, yes. And then maybe a little more herbage, whatever you say, I don't care. A little more salt and a couple hoots of black pepper. One thing I did with Marco's filling that I didn't show it on camera and I forgot to mention is that I taste tested it. I cooked up a little and then I gave it a taste and I was like, okay, the seasoning is good. So in some boiling water, I'm just gonna add in a little taste test. Cool, so how does that taste? That tastes, so chill until firm. And what you don't know is that I have made this earlier in the day than when it appears in the video. Like I haven't finished Marco's recipe yet. I'm about to, but I'm gonna chill this until it's firm. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna give myself plenty of time. All right, we're gonna make a lemongrass and chervil veloute. Chervil, right? Because I am gonna be using my parsley tarragon mix, but we'll get to that. So in a saucepan, I got a chopped shallot, half a teaspoon of white peppercorns, half a teaspoon of coriander seeds, 1 clove of garlic, okay, and sweet, 1 bay leaf. I'm not going anywhere tonight. That fell on the floor. Yeah, I'm not driving. I'm not going anywhere. A few thyme sprigs, 2 stalks of lemongrass, and I'm gonna split them. Half a cup of vermouth. Yes, it is that Noile prepped. Bring it to a boil. Has that reduced down to a syrupy glaze? I would say so. Add 1 cup of my fish stock, and I'm gonna reduce that down by half. Now I'm gonna turn that down to a simmer and carefully add in 1 cup of heavy cream. And so this veloute thing has reached a coating consistency. Okay, another strainer and another bowl. You heard me. Strain this. Oh, that's good. I like that. I still have yet to add the chervil, but that checks out. Double dip? Sure, why not? It's just me, right? Probably a good idea just to kind of cover that up, put it off to the side until I'm ready for it. Quite honestly, I'm running out of space. Why can I never find my page? So I got some nice looking basil leaves here. I'm gonna be making some basil crisps. Remove some of the stems. You can keep some of it. So stretch a sheet of plastic wrap tightly over a deep plate. I'll get my basil leaves on this plate and I gotta rub them with a little olive oil. A little goes a long way. Press flat onto the wrap. Next up, you're never gonna believe this. I gotta microwave until crisp. 2.5 to 3 minutes. And then just safely remove them from the plastic wrap, but be careful, you little bugger, because they are fragile and they stick. Carefully put those into an airtight thing. Another thing crossed off the list. Let's move on to assembling Gordon's ravioli. Same deal as last time, so flour up your surface and, oh, I summon thee. Welcome back, Chromio. Back to your spot. I have a feeling I'm gonna be able to at least split this in thirds. Okay, flatten the dough, flour Chromio, keep adjusting the notches until I got this as thin as I need it to be, which is all the way, baby. As thin as newspaper, please. Come on, Chromio, hold steady, hold steady. So Gordon's asking for a 5-inch in diameter circle, but I got the 4-inch. Okay, quickly roll this into a ball shape and then into the center. That might be a bit too big, but I think that closely matches what Gordon has. Do another one, just tinier, a little smaller. All right, that's the same size. So I have an egg yolk with 2 teaspoons of water, pinch of salt. Then beat that together. Brush the egg wash around the edge. Okay, then goes to the top. Stuff the filling back in there and then pinch. Air pockets be gone. Just making sure it's all sealed tight. Very nicely clean up the edges. So we gotta make a tomato chutney. All right, I gotta need a bowl. Right on schedule. And then I got 2 Roma tomatoes. This is gonna equal 10 ounces. Boiling up some water, pour that on top. Easy peeling, quarter them. Remove the seeds. And then finely chop the flesh. In my small saucepan, I got in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Heat that up. Add the tomatoes, a couple thyme sprigs, some salt, pepper. Cook these until they're soft and pulpy, but fairly dry. Remove the thyme sprigs and we're good. One of the last things I gotta figure out here is this buttered leaf spinach. That's all it says. And I looked in the index and I was trying to figure out if there's a recipe for it. I think you just have to use your brain. You see, it's right there underneath the ravioli. Let's cook that down. Wilt the spinach. Add some butter, pepper, salt. Now, since I don't have a brain, I just realized that it's supposed to be buttered leaf spinach. None of these stems. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, all I see is stems. So I'm gonna painstakingly go through and remove all the stems. It's gotta be done. Okay, I think we're on the last hurrah. Have I aged like 5 years since starting this video? So I have the shellfish stock. I have a lot of it. I need to reduce some of it down because it needs to go for the, I need to drizzle. I need to drizzle with the shellfish stock, so I need to reduce it down to something that's of drizzling consistency, I'm sure. Gordon, help me out here. Yeah, it just says it needs to be drizzling, and you can see in the image there what it's going after, so understood. Should be enough. Reduce that down into something like syrupy, you know? It's taking too long, and I just add a little slurry of arrowroot in there. Reheat the lemongrass veloute. Boiling salted water right here. Ravioli into the boiling water. 2 to 3 minutes. Let's go for 2. Let's go for 3. I do want to make sure that they're cooked. Okay. It's a house of cards back there. I just moved one thing, everything's gonna go toppling over. Anyway, we're done. Into the lemongrass veloute, I have to add the chervil, which is a It's a bunch of it, like a bunch that I bought, and then I chopped it up very finely. But again, this isn't chervil, this is a parsley tarragon mix to mimic chervil. I'm gonna drop it into, the language is weird because he says use a bunch of it, like a bunch of parsley, like that you buy at the store. Or is it just like a bunch? Like, is this a bunch? I think that will work. Drizzle the shellfish stock around the plate. Start inward and go out. Easy does it, you little punk. Just fill in the gaps. Spoon some of the buttered spinach into the center. Ravioli on top. Tomato chutney. Oh, I forgot. I have to drizzle some olive oil on top of the ravioli. Just some. And the basil crisp. Let's get that right. Yeah. Order up! So you might be wondering what happened to that lemon and chervil veloute, right? What happens is you pour it on at the very end. The results are in. They are. You know what? First, I'm just gonna tidy up the joint. I'm gonna tidy up the joint a little bit because it just looks like a Michelin star bomb went off in here. I'll be right back. Oh, welcome back. I'm clean as a whistle, and that gave me a little time to think. Figure out who the winner is and like how I'm gonna critique everything here. And I'm not like a food snob by any means. I don't really pick apart dishes like this when I'm eating them off camera. But I'm gonna play one right now. We're gonna start off with Marco Pierre White's recipe. I'm taking this very seriously and I don't wanna leave anything out. So I'm gonna refer to all my notes here. So with the pasta dough, there was just no stresses at all this time around. It was just like kind of a joy to make, honestly. And I just rolled it out nice and thin. And it was like a silky smooth, I think that's the correct way to describe what I was eating. Because it wasn't al dente or anything like that. It was like a nice silky smooth egg pasta. I think that makes sense, right? I liked it. It was good, it was good. So with the lobster filling, this is when things get a little interesting here. I found that this filling, you could pick up the lobster, but it was on the subtler side. And it wasn't like there was an overpowering flavor of salmon or anything like that. It was just like, no, the lobster was there, you just needed to turn it up a notch, just a hair. The ginger was nice in there, it wasn't overpowering as he said. And yeah, I guess there was a bit of a mishap in my department where I almost nearly pulsed that filling into oblivion, and then I noticed in the nick of time and there were still lobster chunks in there, but yeah, that could have been bad. Luckily, I stopped. We got the scallops. I thought they were a nice seafood contribution. Made things a little more fancy. And those crispy leeks, I really like those things. Those were a nice touch. So this burst soy sauce, I thought that really made the dish stand out. Yeah, it had like a very strong soy sauce flavor to it. You gotta like that, but if you do, it's gonna make this dish memorable in an unexpected way. So from all the Marco recipes that I've made this year, and like the savory ones, and I'm not just talking his recipes, but like what I did to them, practicing restraint, I find, is a biggie. And this recipe really just like perfected that. I thought that was very important because it left me wanting more. It was the perfect amount, and the whole presentation of it, it was just really nice. Let's move on to Gordon Ramsay's recipe. So the dough, the pasta dough, I thought that was really nice. The saffron running throughout, really good stuff. Basically the same dough as Marco's minus the saffron. So all the nice things I said about Marco's, the same for Gordon's. The filling, I found it was more lobster forward here. Like you really could pick up the lobster. I was like, okay, hell yeah, that's what I like in a lobster ravioli. And then the langoustine is like a different texture than the lobster. You just knew you were in for a treat there. Just another flavor, and it was, it wouldn't be fair to compare the textures of the two fillings because of my food processor over eagerness with Marco's recipe, right? because the texture of Gordon's ravioli was very nice, like having all the meat diced up, bigger chunks than what I had with Marco's, but that was my fault. All right, this is when things get a bit nitpicky for the video's sake here. I felt there was maybe one too many things on the plate. And I think it comes down to either the lemongrass and chervil veloute or the reduced shellfish stock. It didn't need to have both of them, I don't think, because they were both battling for my attention there. And if you had one or the other, the dish would still work. It would still be great. And because of how nice everything looked prior to me adding the veloute on top, I'm just like, maybe I could have just skipped that altogether. So the tomato chutney was really, really good. The buttered spinach was spinachy, and the little basil crisp was a cool idea. Light and airy. How do I score this? Okay, so Marco's dish, it comes down to that lobster filling. It could be turned up just a notch, a hair with the lobster flavor, but that beurre soy sauce, that stood out to me, and I think that makes up for the subtler flavor of the filling. I'm gonna give Marco's lobster ravioli on its own an 8.5 out of 10, but the whole plate, the whole package, a 9.5 out of 10. Now with Gordon's dish, I like the lobster ravioli, the filling more, but the whole dish was more complicated to make, and I thought there was just one too many things going on, like with that veloute and all that. So, the ravioli on its own, I will give it a 9.5 out of 10, and the dish, the whole dish, 8 out of 10. Like if I was at a restaurant and I was served one or the other, that's the one I would want. And I think that's the most important mark here. So by that measure...
Then yes, if it's not, then no. Don't ask me a stupid question.
Marco Pierre White is the lobster ravioli cage match champion. Down to the wire, cage match over. I'm going to bed. This was Jamie, Marco, and Gordon. I hope he doesn't see this video. Bon appetit, au revoir. I wish I could redo that.